We've been away for a little while, doing some traveling. Actually, I think missing out on some trading. So I'm excited to be back. Sean, good to see you. How you doing, sir?
Yeah, good. Fresh from my trip back from New York. So yeah, I haven't really looked at the markets too much. So it should be a nice little return for tonight.
Yeah, good stuff. How about you, Kay?
Well, I was not traveling like you guys, but yeah, it's been, good to be back on the channel finally.
Yeah, 100%. And glad you had a good trip, Sean. I mean, I traveled across the country. You traveled around the globe, basically, or across the globe. So a lot of busyness, and it's good. Actually, I don't know about you, but I felt like the airports were packed and airlines were packed and people were hustling about. Do you feel the same sense?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's been like that for some time now. I've had a few trips this year, and every time the airport's been packed, delays obviously definitely there. So the demand is there, that's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. I thought it would be lighter than it was. So we'll see if that's any anecdotal evidence as we head into the end of the year here. But yeah, should we jump right into the charts and get after it?
Let's do it.
All right, real quick before we do, quick disclaimer. None of this is financial advice or trading advice. We are three traders just providing this information for entertainment, educational purposes only. Do appreciate you joining the Trading Triangle every week, and make sure you subscribe and hit the like button below. Helps us get out to as many traders as we can. And yeah, let's get into some charts. We've got quite a week ahead, lots of earnings, good stuff to look forward to. And last week, some pain actually. So this actually might set up nice for this week, right? We've had a bit of a pullback. Sean, you and I were trading. Maybe it's our fault. We weren't around to prop markets up with our money. I don't know. But
Yeah, must be that. Must be that.
I mean, it was tech, right? And we're always talking tech. So yeah, we're back. So maybe that'll give us a little bit of a green tint next week. I'm not
We,
sure.
we
What do you
need
think?
the green, man. We need the green. Look at the Microsoft. Had a phenomenal earnings, still down like 0.58% for the week.
Yeah, that kind
My
of
red pen.
yeah, nice. It spoke volumes the fact that we had these big tech names still down, and yeah, I've been talking a lot about communication sector. XLC is the ETF, and you've got Meta and Google in there, and that was not a good week. So that being said, I think there's some buying opportunities for the longer term investors and hitting some key levels. So I'm sure we'll talk about some of those. And looking at the fear and greed index, not great. Hit extreme fear. So uh, if that makes you uncomfortable, then we are in the extreme part of the uncomfortable sector. The one thing I posted actually last week was, remember, the saying isn't, to sell everything when everybody's fearful, right? So I don't think that's the saying. The saying is to buy when others are fearful, and be wary when others are greedy. And so here we are, potential some buying opportunities. We'll see. It is not an easy scenario. I will say I wrote this week for Wolf Financial about falling knives and not trying to catch a falling knife and waiting for support. And I think that's really kind of where my head's at right now, is looking for the opportunities, but not trying to catch anything as it's dropping. What do you think, Kay? This is VIX at 21.27. Do you like it there? Does that make you
I love
nervous?
it. I love it
I like it.
because this is a time that you actually. So this, if you think about it, right, this is a time that you actually add to your long-term portfolio. Many of the stocks that you love today are probably down below their 200 moving average. So take Tesla for example. I'm not going to go too much into detail, but Tesla is below its 200-day moving average. It was trading at $101 at the start of the year, went to $300. Now it's trading at 2045, something like that. That's a good pullback, right? So if you have a higher cost basis, slowly dollar cost average. So I like to buy stocks, especially long-term portfolio, when you are in the high wicks, high volatility, extreme fear. Because once it's greed, then stocks probably will be much higher. Then if you add, doesn't make any sense.
I
All right. I
agree.
definitely am seeing a correlation, Sean, with us being out traveling last week and market returns. Everything was down over 2%. I don't remember that ever happening since we started doing this.
It's been a
Uh,
while. Yeah.
We to
so
stay put. Yeah.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. So SPY was down 2.5%, QQQ down 2.62, the diamonds down 2.11, IWM small caps down 2.54, and Dow down almost 7% of the year. So that is not good. And then the VIX spiking. Bitcoin, the only thing moving higher now, up almost 107% for the year, which is just insane to say out loud. So yeah, I don't know exactly what to make of Bitcoin moving higher here, but I do have a chart on Marathon Digital, and we do have Coinbase reporting this week. So definitely interesting stuff there. I don't know. We'll see what happens, you guys. Here's the earnings. What's
Love it.
off the page, Sean? What are you looking at?
Well, what am I not looking at? I suppose SoFi, SoFi is definitely what I'm looking at before the open tomorrow, so we can't really talk about too much on that. AMD, of course, I think Kay's going to talk about. Obviously, Palantir jumps off the page for me. I follow that quite closely. But I mean, there's so much to choose from. I mean, I could go on for hours probably with earnings, but yeah, that's the main three I'd say, and obviously Apple as well for the overall market. But yeah, those three.
How about you, Kay?
I think Sean touched most of the stocks that I'm looking at as well. Definitely Arista Network is part of the checklist. I'm also looking at Roku, Qualcomm, PayPal, just to get a sense of how it's happening in the fintech space. Shopify and Block are also my go-to stocks, especially when I'm running option strategies. So yeah, those are mine. And I do have a couple, investing stocks that I do for long term, like McDonald's and Starbucks. So keeping an eye on those as well.
You can lose track of all of these. I mean, we're like the exact opposite of just a few weeks ago when there was nothing to talk about.
Exactly.
And then financials kicked it off, and here we are. You guys named a bunch of names. I'll add in Mercado Libre and Albemarle, both after the close on Wednesday. Big names that I like pay attention to. Caterpillar and McDonald's before that. So McDonald's Monday before the open, Caterpillar Tuesday. McDonald's has really fallen off. Staples have fallen off. And if you look at the Staples ETF, looking for support at this level, what did I have that level at? I actually just have this in my notes from this morning. It's going through all of these sectors. 66 is the level for XLP, which is the Staples has got Costco, Walmart, Pepsi, Coke, McDonald's, all those names. So I'm curious how the week will start off with McDonald's and that kind of in that sector, and it's been just really weak as of late. So looking for support. And then I've got DraftKings Thursday. I'm going to talk about DraftKings, so we'll get to that. All right. So let's kick off with SPY this week. Sean, we've both been out, so I don't think it's fair for either one of us to start. So with that, I'm going to hand it to you. What do you think about SPY this week?
Thanks. Well, for the little kind of research that I've done today, pretty much, we can see that there's a bit of negative action. I say a bit of negative action, pretty harsh last couple of weeks, I think. But definitely the key level of 410 here, I think. So you can see it before the resistance and the support in the past. We can see with the blue highlighted areas and obviously the blue line as well. One thing that I don't like is it's breaking below the 50 moving average. And I'll cover this in my newsletter today. Obviously, links are obviously down below for that. So that's something to be wary about, but it hasn't confirmed the break. Now, for me personally, obviously it has with the daily, but with the weekly, it needs to come back up and reclaim that 50, and that's not a break for me. So we need like an extra candle to confirm the break is what I'm trying to say. But obviously, if we break down to the downside, break 410, I think 393 is definitely in contention with that kind of 200 moving average level, which would be quite a drop, considering how much we've come up this year. I mean, we're kind of around 370 at the beginning of the year. So we're basically taking away all of those gains. So it'll be interesting, that's for sure. But I think this is where we, bounce if we bounce, in inverted commas. Obviously, not financial advice.
Yeah, it looks like a lot of touch points right at this support level at right around 410. Yeah, 410.68. You've got. I noticed the retest of that trend line too, right after breaking that trend line, and you got that retest and then move lower. So it's almost forming the kind of patterns you expect to see before the drop lower, right? It didn't just knife and then look for recovery. It found the recovery and then rejected at that trend line. So I've got that. We need to hold this. I got 408.50. So right there, I mean, is the lowest I want to see it go. Otherwise, 398 comes into play, and you get that 3 handle. That's scary, right? That could mess with people's heads. What about you, Kay? What are you seeing out there in SPY world?
So interestingly, every time we talk about SPY, we have always seen the hedging that happens on SPY on the put to call, right? It's generally over 2. Next entire week, it's in the ones, and it even drops below 1.95 on 11/1, which is what, Tuesday, Wednesday, something like that. And I'll tell you why. It correlates with Jerome Powell speaking Federal interest rate decision, which most likely 95% there won't be a hike this month. So if that goes in line, we could see a bounce back.
Yep, that is definitely the pivot point, right? See what we get. I agree with you, though. I don't think anybody's expecting anything in the way of a rate change, but everybody's going to be paying attention. So we'll have to see how that goes.
And one other thing I wanted to add is a lot of times, like, we are pushing for rate hike. If you think about it, one of the downsides of a higher rate is not just everything becoming expensive for the companies, it's also for the federal government to pay interest on their debt.
Right.
So the higher interest rate it is, they have to pay more, in the interest to their people who hold their debt. So
yeah, there's so many factors that come into play here, and I think we're seeing it across the board, whether it's B2B or consumers. That, I mean, think about a consumer standpoint. You can't refi your house. How many people are using refinancing your house to, spend more money, right? Put it in the swimming pool or buy a car or send the kids to college and all these different things. Now you have to find other ways to get that money and, or at least pay more for the interest. So yeah, different scenario we're heading into here. But despite that, we're in an uptrend still. It's just a little bit precarious, and I think the Qs might give us a little bit, more to talk about, but kind of in the same realm. What do you think, Sean?
Yeah, so for me, I'm very interested in this kind of zone. You can see 330 to 334. You can see the kind of price action that's happened in the pink circles kind of throughout the chart. But obviously, the main thing you can see is that we're breaking down from this channel. And obviously, it looks worse on the daily, of course. But with the weekly, again, as I alluded to on the SPY, if we can have a good week and come back up to kind of that 348, 349 level and reclaim that channel, then that's not a confirmation of a break for me, at least on the weekly. Daily obviously tells different stories, but I want to take a step back and see where we really are, especially going forward. Now, we know that tech obviously runs the market these days, so this would be the main indicator that I would be looking at, kind of going off SPY in terms of market direction. I don't know if you have any opinions of that, of course, but the QQQ does tend to run the market now, at least in my opinion. But yeah, that 330 to 334 with that 50 moving average, which is the blue line, kind of coming in with that would be my ultimate support. And I may actually kind of go into TQQQ on that kind of, if it was to happen, of course. I may go into TQQQ with a kind of a smaller position than if I would to do like a normal position on QQQ. But yeah, what are your thoughts on this?
Okay, you want to go first on this one?
I think Apple is the key here for QQQ.
Yeah, can't disagree with that. And when's that earnings? We just
Thursday after close, yeah. So if your Jerome Powell comes in line and Apple beats everything and has a great guidance, that's it.
Let's see it. Oh, I like it. Setting up for something nice. I mean, honestly, there's been so much negativity. And last week, we even dipped into extreme fear. I'm not saying we're going to get upside for the whole quarter, but I think the coming week kind of sets up for potential upside here, especially if there's if Powell's kind of a nothing burger, and then we get some positivity out of Apple. I agree. I've got the same levels here for the Qs, right where you've got this for support as key support. I think that maybe at, let's see, what did I say? Oh yeah, I was mentioning to myself, I guess, in my notes this morning, that we could see a pop to 355, but even that you could run into some resistance. So I think there's more resistance to the upside than and there's more opportunity to the downside currently where we're at. But I like your support level, Sean. Good
awesome
stuff.
It's exciting stuff.
Yeah, we're gonna have to find out. Well, let's keep it rolling. You've got Neo back in the charts. I'm excited to hear it.
Yeah, so this is a bit of a one kind of take for this one. It's basically the monthly chart, and you can see we're kind of dangerously around that trend line. And you can see I've got DB question mark there, and that's the kind of pink line of 690, and that could possibly be a double bottom. Now, if it was to break the trend line, of course, that would be quite bad. But obviously, looking for that 694 double bottom is basically what I'm trying to say. Really simple this week, I think, for Neo. This is all I wanted to kind of point out. Obviously, with the daily, with the hourly, and all that, it's all over the place. You can't really make much sense of it. So I want to take a really big step back, and you can see this is all the way back from 2019. But these kind of trend lines do work for these type of stocks, but kind of stocks in general is what I'm trying to say, for the ultimate long term. So yeah, a bounce here. I don't know where the bounce would go to. That's not what I'm talking about. But I'm hoping for kind of a very low point of 690, essentially, is what I'm trying to get to here. Now, I don't know if you have anything to put on this chart. I mean, there's not really much else to talk about, but I'm happy to obviously hand it over to you guys.
I have one note here, and that is the reverse here, the reversal in that happened right at the 20-month moving average. It looks like that's a tweezer top formation, right? So usually that's followed by more selling, and we've gotten that, right? 2 months of selling afterwards. But I'm hoping that holds up, because if you kind of look back into the 2019 timeframe, it was harsher. Obviously, it wasn't like an exact reversal of the prior candle. It was a double that amount. But then it continued to sell off and move lower, and I'm just a little bit wary of that. But I like your support level. If we can get a double bottom, and it might check a little bit lower even, but if it can hold and recover quickly, then I think that's constructive in the long term. We're right at that spot though, and maybe the trend line holds. I don't know. I mean, that's what you're showing here, right? It's right at that trend line. So hopefully that adds some additional support and get a good buying opportunity and move higher. I would wait for the support to show up though.
Yeah. And also we still have 2 days left of October. So that could easily kind of bounce up above the trend line in the next couple of days if the HSI was to look good, or if the general market was to look good as well. So it's not all doom and gloom for this month. Yeah. Mostly is, but it's not all doom and gloom.
When is the earnings coming up? Somewhere around mid-November, end November?
It'll be about, and they haven't released it yet, not that I know of anyway.
Okay.
Been out of the loop, but I think it'll be about mid to late November, normally is.
Got it.
We have to keep an eye on deliveries still, right? Got to close out the year strong.
Yeah, exactly. And the deliveries this month haven't looked great so far in terms of registrations, but obviously that's not deliveries. So we'll find out that Wednesday as well. So it'll be interesting to see.
All right. Thanks for Neo here, Sean. What else we got? Palantir.
Oh, favorite one.
Yeah. Now you can see there's a lot going on this chart. But Palantir, I think we'll probably start with the fact that we have earnings coming up on Thursday before hours. Typically before hours haven't been great, but I suppose it doesn't really matter. But after hours have normally brought the kind of exciting earnings reports. Now you can see in the little white box there just below Nate's name, just above Nate's name, sorry, Palantir post-earnings movement. The average is 13.7%. Obviously, it's not going to move that exactly, but I've marked on the chart there the green line and the red line kind of diagonal. Oh, you've got a mouse on there. That's great. You can use that. Direct it. But yeah, you've got the green line and the red line on there as well, and you can see that the red line takes you down to kind of $13, which wouldn't be very good. And the green line takes you up to kind of 17, which has been quite a testing point in the past, and we spoke about it even a few weeks ago. It looks like we've broken down there, come up, retested it, as you can see, in the last 4 or 5 days. But price action in the near term makes, there's no point even talking about it, but I'm basically just talking about earnings. If we get good earnings and we post good net income, that's 4 quarters in a row, and that is basically entry to S&P 500, or at least they can apply for it. They'll probably get it considering their status within the world, pretty much. Right. Working with such, loads and loads of industries. They have TAM, I believe it's called, total addressable market. But yeah, that's exciting for them. But if they can really post a good revenue, even if it's just a slight beat, especially in this economy, I think that would be amazing. I'm going to stop talking now, but yeah, the near term I'm not looking at. I'm just basically waiting for earnings on Thursday, see what happens, and probably trade off of that.
I don't know about UK, but I feel like all's right in the world again. We're talking about Neo and Palantir back on the trading triangle. I mean, things feel better. I felt a little bit off last week.
Yeah, I guess, we need these retail stocks to do especially well. And because if you think about it, retail stocks also a sentiment. when the stock market gets into extreme greed, you tend to see the retail investors pulling back. They don't talk about retail stocks as much. So companies like Palantir, SoFi, they need to come back in terms of the retail enthusiasm to come back.
Yep, got to find some levels of support here and look for the leaders, even in the retail, popular retail names. I think, and I think Palantir is one of those that, just for what it's worth, was very popular amongst retail traders, and then also gained a lot of institutional attention. And so you've got this kind of nice combination going on there with some additional money flowing in. So
Yeah,
super interesting spot.
It's basically, instead of, generally it happens, institutional holders hold the stock and then retail gets on it. Companies like Palantir, SoFi, Tesla is the other way around. It's the retail holding it, bringing it to the forefront, and then institutions getting on board. Oh, yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, well said. Well, looking forward to earnings, Sean. This is a good one.
Yeah, me too. Obviously, you can find me on Twitter, the normal platform X. I keep saying Twitter, even 2 months afterwards. You can find me on X, obviously, talking about trading, not so much recently, but I'll be getting back into it this week. Don't worry about that. Obviously, YouTube, again, I've been quite quiet on there recently because of the holidays, but I'll be getting a few more technical analysis videos out this week, especially related to earnings, of course, and see where it kind of makes the moves. Do one on end phase, I think. I believe it's quite an interesting point, at least for me. And obviously a newsletter I released this morning about SPY, QQQ, and IWM. So kind of a macro look at the kind of short term, at least in the markets. But yeah, that's it for me. I'll hand it over to Nate.
Yeah, be sure to check out Sean's newsletter. It's good stuff. I've been enjoying it myself. And I'm also enjoying our new format here that we've got on the stream. In particular, the fact that my name stays up in the bottom left of these charts, no matter who's on here.
Well, you are the host.
I'll get that fixed. That's good stuff. All right. Thanks again, Sean. And I'll jump into my charts here. I've got 2, as always, and Marathon Digital is the first one. So we mentioned Bitcoin is up almost 107% for the year, which I can't believe it, even as I say it again. And the miners, though, the crypto miners and whatnot have not really kept up, right? So they've been selling off. You can see in this chart here, Marathon really had a massive sell-off after a huge run, which we took advantage of earlier in the year. And then we found some support at 711. So I like that. And I started paying attention again. We broke the downtrend, not aggressively, but now we're seeing this kind of higher highs and higher lows and marching higher here. So I do like that. I do like the fact that we've got the 50-day moving average in sight. It's not breaking above, though, so we need to get there. And once we get above, I think that we could get some real momentum. But that's key. I think we got to get above $9 first, which is right around where that 50-day moving average is. But overall, yeah, we got RSI above 50 again, and things are looking kind of positive for Marathon Digital. Coinbase reporting Thursday. I honestly can't stand Coinbase. It's a personal thing. So I just never even trade it because I think my bias gets in the way. Maybe that's a good lesson, right? Like, I really dislike Coinbase. So every time I trade it, I just want to short it no matter what's going on. It's not a good way to approach trading. So, so Marathon Digital here. Sean, what do you think about this chart and this move higher?
Very emotional from you, Nate. Don't let me get that. No, I like this chart, and what I really like is where it is now for a breakout trade potentially. So you've got those 3 points very recently touching around that kind of 886 level, where we are basically now. Yep. And I like it to basically start scaling in. You may not agree, and that's probably not the best way to trade, but I know we are below the 2 moving averages. But you touched on, obviously, Bitcoin moving. It's moving over the weekend as well, so that's positive. But yeah, I think scaling in, and obviously if we do get a breakout of 1068, when I say scaling in, I'm talking about very, very small. So starting with a very small position and kind of edging the market beta, that kind of thing. So it is pretty much a gamble. And obviously stop loss around that kind of 711 level. So again, quite risky, I suppose. But yeah, I think scaling in and basically getting that move early from 1064, probably not what I was supposed to say, but that's how I would do this one.
I think you're right. But what do you think, Jay? I'll get back to my thoughts on that in a second.
So I think I agree with that, but I think I'll wait for the 9 before even I get into any CSP position. And the implied volatility on Mara is actually pretty good. It's 123% and above. So over 100% volatility means that the premiums are amazing at these levels. But the problem is, I think I don't see a clear trend here unless you guys tell me otherwise. So I would want to wait for that $9 before I feel comfortable start getting into the CSP and the wheel strategy over here.
So I like the waiting and being patient, like you're saying, but I actually something that I've been talking more and more about with other traders is what you were mentioning, Sean, is scaling in and starting small, and then as we get above 9, which K is exactly what you're saying as well, is once you get above to those key levels, then you can really add in and up your position size. And I think that's the opposite of what a lot of new traders do. So if you're thinking about, you go in with conviction on your very first trade when you're in a spot like this where, there's still some resistance above. Well, if it reverses and you take that hit, right? But if it's a reversal and you take the small loss and you get out, no harm, no foul, where once it gets above these key moving averages, you get more of the probabilities in your favor and you start adding in, you actually are adding to the winners as you move higher versus adding as it goes lower. So I like that approach. I think that with Bitcoin kind of doing what it's doing, we've got some opportunity here in the space. So I wanted to bring up Marathon.
But let me ask you this question. Do you think that there is any danger to Mara if Coinbase reports poor earnings?
Oh, that's a great question. And I didn't look at the correlation between the two. I don't know that there's huge correlation, except for if Coinbase were to say something that was more general towards Bitcoin in the space. I think then yeah, you would have that sympathy kind of trading. But I think in general they kind of trade a little bit separately and more in lockstep with Bitcoin.
Got it.
Yeah. Although recently, again, they haven't really followed Bitcoin as it made this massive push, lately from 27K, I think it was at, to now 34.
36, so 30, 34, 36, yeah.
Yeah, it's quite a move. And then next up, DraftKings, right? So earnings this week, it's sitting on support. Look, if you're looking for an opportunity to buy into DraftKings, this is the setup. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. I'm not telling you to take a trade, obviously, but we've got the 150-day moving average here as support, right at the 2641 lower level of the trading band that we've been in here. It got sloppy and got above 30.32. By that I mean $30.32, and all the way up to $32. But I don't really think that 32 level is really consistent with the range. I think 30 is kind of the psych level. We've seen it rejecting there pretty quickly once it gets there, and more recently in October. So $26 to 30, that's quite the range. You can trade, you can make some good money there. And you can also sell some cash secured puts here, if I'm not mistaken, Kay. Get some decent implied volatility juicing the premiums.
123% for end of next week. However, you got to be careful because generally DraftKings and Mara and SoFi, they always have a good, always more positive put to call ratio. This time for 1103 expiration, we have 1.33, which means that there are more puts. So you have 26,000 plus puts versus only 19,000 or 20,000 call options for next week.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's one of those trades where we're going into earnings and we've got a good setup. So high risk, high reward. You want to respect your stops. What do you think, Sean?
So for me, I'm looking at this trend line that starts kind of end of July, from the highest point of the chart, kind of going down with the other highs coming from then. And that'll be my kind of entry point if it was to break that trend line. Nothing much to add from what you've said. I think you nailed it on top of the nail there. Nailed on top of the nail. Hit on.
I like it. That's where you want to nail it.
Hit on the nail. Hit on. I don't know what I'm saying. But yeah, I think
hit the nail on the head.
That's the one. Yeah, I've had too much time off. But yeah, that's what I'd be looking at. The kind of trend line coming down. If we can break that, maybe we test it. You can see a little bit of a volume shelf around there as well. That kind of 28, kind of 29 level. And so we can break through that. Obviously, we can go up to kind of 30, like you said, psychological. And above that, I think even better. I'll just hold it. From
that trend line you're talking about it's right around that 50-day moving average. So I think that would be a key level, and I think it's a good call. I wasn't really looking at that downtrend, the lower highs, but I think you're right, Sean. I'll be focusing on that.
Yeah.
So one more data point that I think if you're going to trade DraftKings, whether you're going to do options or just regular shares, so the implied move in the earnings week is about 10%. So looking at what, $3 plus minus, that would be your implied move. Of course, it can go more or less, but that's generally the implied move that happens on an average.
Good stuff. All right. Well, let's see if we get those moves. We get a big trading day on earnings with DraftKings. You know me, I like to trade heading into earnings usually, and then kind of close positions out and then reassess afterwards. If we get a good bounce Monday and we hold this level, I'll probably get in and maybe leave a few runners, take some profits, and then maybe leave a runner or two. We'll see how that works. But that's my mindset heading in. Thought I'd share that with everybody this week. And then, of course, you can find me on, Sean, I'm going to call it Twitter for like 8 years, so don't worry about it. You can find me on X. And also, I'm going to have Sean go first so it reminds me every week. See if that helps me. And then Traders Education is my newsletter published on Substack. Do subscribe. Got over 500 subscribers now. It's free every week. And I try to add in some audio clips throughout the week as well, just talking about different positions and the sectors. I like to do sector analysis. So good stuff there if you're interested. And then I write for Wolf Financial as well. I'm on his spaces throughout the week. And also every Sunday, got a nice post in his newsletter as his lead writer. So hopefully you can check me out in all those areas. And let's get to KAYE's charts next. We've got AMD, which I'm glad you got. What are you thinking about AMD?
So AMD reports earning on 10/31. It's going to be one of the most watched earnings. Anybody who has followed Intel's earning last week, it came out amazing quarterly earnings. They are tying up with NVIDIA. And even though AMD is supposed to have a weaker demand, as per a lot of reports, analysts and many other writers are expecting that because Intel had such a strong showing, it could spill into AMD as well. So that takes care of AMD. Couple things to keep in mind. You have a 0.68 EPS estimated, and you have a $5.6 billion revenue. That's what expected. Generally, the implied move is plus minus 7%. It's about $8, $9, maybe $10 up, down, plus minus from here onwards. Now, I know that we didn't talk about last week, so I didn't mention this on the trading triangle, but if you follow me on my YouTube, we talked about how we were expecting the 20-day moving average to have a crossover at 50-day moving average, kind of creating a golden cross, so the stock can actually go up. However, beautiful part about stock market is that it will humble you as soon as you try to, think that you got it, you got the stock market down, right? So that's what happened with us, right? We expected the AMD to go above, but it actually crashed back. You saw this major gap down with this big selling pressure on, I think that was 24th or 25th, I think one of those days. And it broke through our $102 level. Now, 102 has been like our stalwart support line for a long time. As you can see, it's on the fib level here. It also broke through our trend line. And if you notice, the trend line is hugging very nicely with the 200-day moving average. So now the stock is below the 200-day moving average. The current put to call is 0.7 with 80% implied volatility. And with earnings coming up, we know generally the volume at least goes double. Cases of SoFi where the volume can go 3 times, at least with AMD, the volume does go to 2 times. We have seen in the past.
It's kind of crazy, right? Because it's not a small company.
Exactly. It brings $5.6 billion a quarter. So for 4 quarters, looking at about $20 billion, right? That's a lot of money this company makes. So I think in this scenario, one of the key elements is the 93.56 on the fib level is, of course, going to act as a support level. We saw a bounce at that level. So if the implied volatility, if the move is expected, I hope and if things go line up, we can expect it to go back above the trend line. That's what we want to hope happens, and the 200-day becomes like a support level for AMD. And it can happen. If you can see the previous earnings, we can see these major gap ups with AMD. Anything in semiconductor can, pull that off. But in case of a downside, we would want to see 93.56 hold. If not, you can go all the way down to 84 because there isn't much happening between those two levels. That is what I see, at least on the chart. I still have a couple open trades on AMD, with one or two being one of my strike prices. So all I'm doing is I'm rolling it week after week and collecting that premium. So what do you guys see?
Yeah, I mean, just touching on your kind of negative point there, breaking the 93.40, there isn't much in the way, is there, to 84? So that could be quite a nice play if that was to obviously pan out in the days to come. But I think for me personally, it's waiting for the earnings, like you said. And then if we were to break up, obviously holding all the moving averages, that's the kind of where I'd be looking at. AMD is not really one I normally touch. I have traded it a few times. But yeah, I like your point on the fact that Intel obviously posted really well on Thursday or Wednesday, whatever it was. So if this can follow that, then that'd be amazing. But that's all I can really add on this. But you touched on it really well.
I was looking at NVIDIA, and it's also at like the bottom of its range, right near 400, and looking to bounce. So I'm really curious if that that 400 level for NVIDIA is broken, if we do get kind of negative news from AMD, and if it has any trading and sympathy. So but AMD is at a really key spot, I think, in semiconductors across the board. Like I was looking at SMH, the ETF for the sector, and I mean, it just rolled over pretty hard. So we're looking for some support here somewhere, and I see a lower low being formed relative to the most recent low. So yeah, need to get some footing and make a higher high for AMD and get back in the positive trend, because the trend is definitely to the downside recently, right? Just
100%.
looking at the chart.
Yeah, 100%. It's in the downside, and AMD is one of the most liquid stocks in the options world. It's in the top 10, most traded options, every single week. So if this is the trend, then it definitely has an impact on both Intel and other semiconductor stocks.
Yeah.
Just one thing as well, the SMH, I just pulled it up while you guys were talking. It's it's literally just touching its 200 moving average. I don't know if you already,
right there.
It's literally on it. So that's interesting to see.
A lot of stocks are either touching or actually have broken through the 200-day moving average. And this kind of takes us back to the point, like, we are trading, but we are also thinking about long-term investment. So a lot of times, you can start to dollar cost average slowly into your long-term position, especially for stocks that are below the 200-day moving average.
I think with an ETF, though, sometimes it becomes more prevalent as well, rather than the stock. Because that's what people are really looking at, the actual industry itself. So I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, agreed. And I like what you're saying, Kay. You kind of shift back and forth, right? If you're, at least for me, anyways, I'm trading nice moves. Everything's clean. I'll be trading more actively. When things are less clean and pulling back, I find my long-term portfolio getting more of my attention. Right?
Yeah, you got to shift your love,
Yep, absolutely.
So that's it for the AMD.
Ooh,
all right. Next one is Block, ticker symbol SQ. This is also reporting earnings, and I have covered this many times on the Trading Triangle. They report earning on 11/2 after close. Their EPS is 0.46 expected, with a revenue of 5.4 billion. So in the same range as AMD, so not a small company either. Their implied move is a little bit higher than AMD, so they're about 9.2%. So you can expect about a $4 or $5 a move, at least, up in the up or downside. Key thing to note in this company is that they are having a 26% year-over-year growth in the revenue, and they are a profitable company from a non-GAAP perspective. So if you zoom out for a second, don't look at the chart. This company in the fintech space is a pretty solid company as compared to some of the other companies that are in the fintech space. SoFi is a bank. They are not a bank, but they have both the hardware and the software side, just like Apple, from the vertical integration standpoint. So the Cash App, point of sale, hardware system. So a pretty good, robust portfolio of products. So that's the fundamental side of the company. Now, if you look at this chart, we are making lower highs since I don't know how many months now, actually since last year, lower highs. It's been on a downward trend altogether. So we stepped back. We said, you know what? Let's take a little zoom out view, and then we had this downtrend line, which was respected for a while now. But on Friday, we actually broke slightly and then went back up the trend line. So that 38.91, and that gap down is not a great sign that we are seeing so much selling pressure happening across all fintech space. I think all fintech companies are literally, having the worst nightmare in a while now, right?
It's been
Uh,
rough.
it's been rough. It's been very, very rough. But still, because of the retail investors in there, the put to call is look at the 0.7. Generally, in this scenario, you should see 1.1, 1.5. You should be more bearish, but put to call doesn't say that. And because of that, the implied volatility is 1.142%. So it's going to be a risky. If you are going to trade this, I would only trade it if in the options world, if you're going to open CSPs, only do it if you want to hold square in your long-term portfolio. Don't do it because it implied volatility is 142% and you're going to get a good premium. Because if you don't believe in the stock, you don't like the stock, I wouldn't touch the stock, because this is not a great setup. We can go further down from here.
Yeah, I think those are good words of wisdom, Kay. I mean, we talk a lot about selling cash secured puts and bringing in that premium, but you do want to make sure you have conviction in the stock, because you could end up owning it, right? And you're saying not just to focus on the yield. Yeah, good stuff. At the bottom of this downtrend, could get some support, but kind of a dicey spot. What do you think, Sean?
So the only thing I've actually pointed out something positive, would you believe?
Hey.
RSI divergence. I don't know if you guys have heard this before. But it's where the RSI kind of turns the other way to where the stock is going. So you can see at the moment the last two lows. So the low we've got recently is kind of beginning of October, maybe just a turn of it. And obviously the low we've just set on Friday. Compared to the RSI, where we had the low again with that kind of middle of October, we're kind of above that on the RSI. Now, when that happens, it's more like a trigger, more like an indicator to people obviously to kind of go the opposite direction. So in this case, it would be the stock to go up. An example of that is I've tried to find one throughout this chart, and you kind of can see it. I think, where was it? So just after July, just basically the whole of July up until August, you can see where the RSI touches the top, comes back down, sets a lower high on the RSI. But if you look at the stock actually sets a higher high. So they're kind of opposite. And obviously that would have been a great time to invest or sell the stock basically, or place a short position, and you would have made a ton of money, because look at how fast it dropped. Obviously that's not always the case, but it is an indicator that traders use. It's not one I use all the time, but it's one I'm looking at more and more, trying to get used to it, because obviously it's not cemented every time, but it's just something that I saw on this chart. If we can basically go up on the RSI in the next few days, especially with decent earnings coming up on Thursday, I think you said, if we can get that RSI ticking up, that is a really good indicator for possible positive price action going forward. I probably said so many words. Sorry, Kay.
No. This is great, because
I think that's the most. I mean, Sean, you got my attention over here. By the way, like
exactly
right. You're with me.
I mean, you touched on the fundamentals. So you touched on the fundamentals as well. So all of that kind of combining, makes sense.
Yeah, you got my attention there, Sean. The RSI divergence is something I have not looked at in a long time. Okay, is that something you've traded?
I mean, I know about it, but I did not even think about that until Sean brought it up.
Yeah, that's a really good observation. I like that. And it's funny because this is really not. Okay, you and I were both like, it's very negative, but that's a
yeah, exactly.
Like
it looks good. Listen, I mean, honestly, this is why we have this session, right?
100%.
Everybody looks at a chart in a different way, and it just pops out. Some things just pop out to you, which maybe others are not seeing it. So this is amazing. If the earnings really come out well for Block, or at least in line with the street, we shouldn't be. I think this stock has been thrashed, man. This used to be over $200. Now look at it, 38.91.
It's down at like COVID lows almost, with 35-ish.
Yeah.
It's this. Yeah, there's a lot of stocks getting there too. Thanks, kid. That was a good one.
Yeah. Yeah, so as usual, I'm also on Twitter with InvestK. I do post weekly videos. Generally, I do a weekly trading video. It's always posted on Sundays. I also tend to do, if I get time, I tend to do other videos as well on stock analysis. So check me out on YouTube. And I also have a newsletter where you can sign up. It's free. And I post on a weekly, bi-weekly, monthly basis, depending on how much time I can pull off to write something.
I like it. This has been great, you guys. I like the new setup we've got. I'm going to mess around with a little bit of a banner. Let us know what other stocks you guys might want to hear about in coming weeks. We do this every Sunday. Thanks for joining the Trading Triangle. And before we get out of here, do make sure you smash the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I appreciate you helping us get the word out to others. We like doing this every week, like I said, and it's a good time for everybody, I think. Heading into the next week, I mentioned it. We had some pullbacks, a lot of selling, a lot of extreme fear. We touched, well, not a lot, but we touched on the extreme fear. So this week, I think we see some setups. Look for key support and look for those bounces first before getting too aggressive. And then I think in this market, I'm still taking profits pretty quickly because they're getting swiped right out from under you if you don't. So that's my mentality. I mean, I'm going to have to sit on my hands Monday because after not trading last week, Sean, are you like this? Like you just anxious to get back at it?
I am, but I'm also quite apprehensive as well. So I'm going to be looking at a bit more of my swing trades, a bit more of the long-term perspective. I mentioned before the call, like end phase is one of those I'm looking at as well. So that's kind of shouts off the page to me. I mean, the sun's not going away. So, but yeah, I keep going off tangents today. Anyway, yeah, swing trading and long-term trading. I'm not going to do so much day trading this week. I might play on a few earnings, but that's about it.
Plenty of earnings to pick from. How about you, Kay?
Well, I think my only take is that I like playing earnings, but it's not for everybody. And I don't think you should be playing earnings if you have not done it before. And if you want to, definitely take a look at the implied move, generally the average implied move, and have that as a buffer. But yeah, earnings are binary. So it's a gamble in a sort. Actually, it is a gamble, I would say. So sit out if you're not comfortable with that.
On top of that, with earnings, obviously we don't always play before earnings. Sometimes we play after earnings as well. I mean, we're not talking about YOLO calls and that kind of stuff. It's kind of how it plays out afterwards. And I think maybe Nate, you were about to say that. I'm not too sure.
That's exactly what I was going to say. So that's perfect. No, that's no apologies. We are in sync. This means some confluence, and that's a good thing. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to the coming week, you guys. Notice I brought the bricks back.
Yes, I see that.
I couldn't handle all that selling, so I had to bring the bricks back. I'm hoping it's some support, provide support for the markets. We'll see what happens. But hey, everybody, thanks for tuning in. If you missed it, we're going to have the live recording posted on our YouTube channel. Again, be sure to subscribe and hit the like button. Find us on X, formerly Twitter, and ask any questions you like. And yeah, we'll be talking to you guys throughout the week. And have a great week trading, everybody.
All right. Take care. See you next week.
Thank you. See you later.